Well, the House Democrats issuing a subpoena for the unredacted Mueller report after voting to hold Attorney General Bill Barr in contempt of Congress for not handing it over.
This administration, this president, will not sully the Constitution.
The president now seeks to take a wrecking ball through the Constitution.
This is one of the most serious, if not the most serious, constitutional moment that we have faced.
The President of the United States is a wannabe dictator with authoritarian tendencies.
We are now in a constitutional crisis.
Okay, that's what he says. So what happens next? Let's talk to Fox News senior judicial analyst and host of Liberty File on Fox Nation, Judge Napolitano. Judge, they were asking for the unredacted version of the Mueller report. By law, that cannot be released to Congress.
That's correct. By law, the Attorney General did the right thing with respect to the redaction. But when you get a subpoena, which is presumed valid, even if it's politically motivated, it's presumed valid. It's a legal instrument. You can't sit on it. If you can't comply with it, you file a motion before the appropriate judge to quash it. That's the word we use, meaning either get rid of it, modify it, or authorize me to comply with it.
You're talking about his appearance last week?
Yes, that's the mistake I think the DOJ made by not doing that and letting it get to this contempt stage. If they had brought it before a judge, the judge would have said, you know what, I'm going to read the redacted portions and I'll decide what can be released. And then the issue is over with because the judge's ruling would stand. Whoever lost would appeal. Who knows if they would even take the appeal, if it would get to the Supreme Court. This is what happened in United States versus Nixon, and the Supreme Court ruled with clarity. Do we have a constitutional crisis? In my opinion, we don't. We would have a constitutional crisis if the courts ordered the president or the Congress to do something, and either of them defied the courts. That's the crisis. Right now, it's just a clash.
Judge, do you feel as though a judge would take into account the fact that they didn't even show up to get the lightly redacted portion of the Mueller report, which is up to 98% as opposed to 92%?
I think a judge would take into account all the facts in the case. Judges, the reason... You know, I was once there. The reason they are life tenured is so that they don't have to get involved in the politics. They're just concerned with whether or not the redacted materials, the public interest in them outweighs the privacy rights of those being protected. There are some people in there, I have reason to believe, whose names we don't know, who are not politicians, who are officials of the government, who risk their lives to do our work.
Plus,
no good would come from revealing their names. There's also materials in there that I don't think is subject to executive privilege because some of it has nothing to do with communications with the president. Only a judge in her chambers can look at all that and decide, did Bill Barr do the right thing? Am I going to authorize him to release this stuff, even though the rule says you're not supposed to release it?
Nancy Pelosi sat down with a Washington Post reporter, and she talked about the investigation. She talked about tax returns, Trump's tax returns, and she said that she wants to basically lock up many in the administration. Listen.
Democrats have even raised the prospect of arresting the Treasury Secretary if he does not comply with congressional demands.
If we were arresting all of the people in the administration, we would have overcrowded jail situation, and I'm not for that.
There is a jail in the basement of Congress.
Theoretically, there is. I say theoretically because it hasn't been used. That's a political statement.
Of course.
We all know why. Politicians on both sides, they all make political statements. I don't know what the president's tax returns have to do with this. We're talking about the redacted portions of the Mueller report. The real clash will come when the House Judiciary Committee subpoenas Bob Mueller himself, and the president says, I don't want you to testify.
So we're not at a crisis, we're at a clash.
Correct.
This whole thing was an insult to the one's intelligence and logic because they don't care about the redacted. No one says, if I could only see behind that black rectangle,
you know,
I would know my life would be complete.
It's crazy because it's such a battle over a document that none of them has seen.
Absolutely.
All the best, guys.
Thank you very much.
Where's Janice? How do I have some of that cake?
She's cutting the cake.
Where are the flowers,
Janice?
Janice?
She's finding a vase.
She's planning the wedding.
Oh, God love you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Judge.
Oh, I was with these cops this morning. They're great guys.
Yeah,
What are you reading the prompter?
I was on one of the bikes.
They're going to be outside. They're outside. We're going to talk to them next.